Welcome back. Today we're going to continue making our video game, and we're actually going to add animation to our character. If you remember last time, we actually had stopped off and had gotten our character moving, but that's as far as we got. So if I hit the play button up here, our character will pop in, and she's very rigid and just kind of doesn't have any animation added to it, but we can move left and right and backwards, and this character does jump. So we're going to go ahead and fix that, and we're going to use our animations to do that. So let me go ahead and get started on that. Bring up my notes here real quick. All right, so the first thing I think we're going to want to do is let's take a look at our character blueprints. Okay, so we can go in here, go into my pawn, and I'm going to find my character. And this is what we left off with. One thing I do want to do is I want to make sure that this is very clear that this is all of our character animation. I'm going to move these over just a little bit so they're much closer. I'm not wasting as much space in there. And I'm going to go ahead and select it all. And I'm going to hit C and comment all of these, and these are going to be my character movement. Okay, so, and wow, totally misspelled that. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm actually typing. We can just click in there and change that. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so now we've got this whole thing kind of marked out, and I am going to give this a distinct color, so I'm going to select that over here. I'm going to make this sort of a greenish color down into here, so all my animation stands out inside of this, or all of my movement controls stand out for my character right inside of the blueprint. Compile and save that. Now we're going to go ahead and go back into our level here, and we're going to start with getting our blend space set up, I think. So let's go ahead and bring that up here. We're going to go ahead and first we're going to create an animation blueprint, and let's go ahead and do that. So what I want to do down here is I'm going to keep the animation tied next to the character that I'm working on. And right now inside my blueprints I have pawns, and then I just have this character here by herself. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name this folder Lieutenant Bellica. Put her inside there. Move here. And then I'm going to go ahead and open that blueprint. Open that folder up and create another folder inside here. This is in case you end up making more than one character inside your game. You can kind of keep them all together with their own folders and stuff. And this is going to be my animation folder. And inside here, we're going to open that one up. We're going to go ahead and we're going to right click. And now what we want to do is under animation, so we're going to scroll up to animation. We're going to find an animation blueprint right here. Okay. And the animation blueprint is going to ask us which character or skeleton is going to be attached to. And in this case, it's going to be my Bellica skeleton here. Okay, this is the same game character skeleton that I'm currently using. You can see we might have a few other choices depending on what you pulled into your project. I'm going to say OK. And first, got to select it. Helps to do that. I'm going to say OK. All right, I'm going to name this. This is going to be an anim, so ANIMBP. So we know that's an animation blueprint, and this is going to be for Bellica. Okay, and we hit enter, and now we have the beginnings of our animation blueprint. So we're going to double click and open that up, and it opened up in the wrong window. So let's go ahead and pull that over. And right now we have this outpost. There's nothing attached to it, and this is pretty much everything that we currently have inside of our animation blueprint. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this for just a second. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to add a couple functions in here to be able to detect the motion for movement and for speed. And then we're also going, or movement and direction rather, and then we're also going to have a few more variables that we're going to put in down here, and these are going to be variables that are going to help us with the rest of our animation. So we are going to end up creating some blueprints here inside the event graph. So here we have the event graph and we have the animation graph. Now when we take a look at the animation blueprint, you'll see all the way over here to the right we have our blueprint, which is where we're at. If we click on animation, it'll open up an animation folder that shows an animation that this one already exists out there for this character, but we're not going to end up using this one. Looks like this is just a jog backwards one anyway, and I'm not sure why that one decided it was going to open up for us, but that's okay. We're going to end up writing our own anyway. Here we can take a look at our mesh, see what all of her mesh consists of, and then we also have the skeleton. Now, the thing about the skeleton, I'm using this character that is downloaded from the marketplace. This is one of the Paragon characters, I believe it was, from Epic Games. And this character already came with the skeleton complete. It also came with the gun down here, which right now is located at her feet. And if we take a look at the skeleton here, if we take an open look at the skeleton tree, you'll see that all the additional bones, everything that has to do with the bones and the joints inside this character are listed right here. All the way down here, there's a weapon joint, which is right there. The weapon is not attached to this because there's no connection here. But if we go down a little bit further, there's another one that says weapon right here. And this weapon is the rifle that is currently at her feet. And then it also has some additional bones that are attached to it, or joints. And you'll also see that the SMG has some larger pieces here. We're going to end up using some of these. There's also a pistol one, which is also tied to where the rifle is right now. If we changed out the weapon, it would fill the place of the gun and the pistol would be there. So, but we're going to just concentrate on just this one weapon. So if you're using a different character, you may not have this already set up. I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video. So my recommendation is to find one of these Paragon characters that already has a pre-existing weapon, or find a character that has a weapon set up similar to this. There are ways for you to bring in weapons and attach them to sockets on these bones, which are what these are. And then you can move forward with that. I will eventually make a video covering this, but this video series is just kind of get started, and we're going to learn the basics before we start doing additional things like this. It's not a complicated thing, but it's just not inside of what I have set up for this. All right, so with this character, we can see that we have everything already set up there for her body. So what we want to do is start to do an animation blend space, and so that we can go ahead and get her moving, and then we can come back into our animation blueprint here and plug that in so that she moves correctly and we have our animation working. So the first thing we're going to do is, now that we've taken a look at the blueprint, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a animation blend space. And let me open that up. All right. So right in here, back at the top level, so now I got all these things open, we're going to go ahead and close the skeleton out. We don't need that right now. We're not going to use the mesh. This one we're not using at all. And right here, we're going to leave the blueprint open, but we will come back to this. So down here, next to where we created that animation blueprint, we're going to go ahead and right click, and we're going to go back into animation. And this time we're looking for blend space right here. Okay, so we want the blend space, and it's asking us which skeleton is this going to go on to, and this is going to go on to our character skeleton. So mine is Bellica skeleton right here. I'm going to select that, and then we're going to name this blend with a capital B and then a capital S for blend space, and then underscore, and this is going to be the character's name. Mine is Bellica. So now we have our blend space started. We're going to go ahead and open that up, and there's nothing in here yet. But one thing we do notice is that there are a lot of animations listed over here to the right. Where did those animations come from? Where did it know to pick these up already? Well, that is back here. We're going to go ahead and find that. We're going to go into our level. We're going to go back up to the top level for our content. And remember the character you downloaded? So my folder is still here, but what I've done is I've actually created a characters folder, and I pulled her into here. It takes a little bit of time, probably a good couple of minutes or so for you to move a complicated character into another folder. I would recommend doing that, and then you can always come back in and delete this empty folder after you're done. And if it doesn't delete, you may have to delete it inside of Windows, in the Explorer, Windows Explorer, into the project, and then delete the folder that way. So I'm going to click on the characters folder, go in here, and inside of this character, I'm going to select characters, heroes. There's a lot of subfolders inside this. Select Bellica, and you'll see that there is already an animation blueprint that's been created. And we could certainly plug this one in. It's the canned one. It's actually really good, and you can take a look at it and learn quite a few things about an animation blueprint and some more complexity. We're going to build a little bit simpler one to get started. All right, there's an animation test map. All right, so down in here, texture, skins, meshes, there's a folder called animations. We'll double click on that, and inside of here are all of those different animations that we just saw listed in our blend space animation tab. And then they've also done a nice thing for us, which is another reason why we're using this character, is they've put in some aim offsets, which we're going to use for when we create a blend space for our aim. So in an idle position, when your character is aiming up or aiming down, left or right, we're going to need some of these to help adjust our character so it looks correct. And then we also have another one called blend spaces in here, where they have created some blend spaces for things like turning, leaning, and different things like that. And that jog backwards was one of those that we saw that was playing a minute ago. So that's where it all comes from. We are going to come back in here and use these, but we're going to pull them in through our blend space tab instead. But this is where they're all kept, so you can look through them and take a look at it. When we start to use one of our enemies, which is going to be the spider character, I'll show you where we're going to get it. We'll actually have to create some of these ourselves, and we'll learn how to do that too and break them out of an animation that is a long string animation. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back into our content folder here. And inside our content folder, we're going to go back into our blueprints, pawns, and Bellica here. We'll just keep this open inside of our animations. And we're going to go back up to our blend space. All right, so our blend space. What we want to do is we want to, first we need to set up our blend space. And what we're going to do is, let's see here. That's what it is right here. So right here we need to open our horizontal axis and our vertical axis. So right under axis settings, and what these are, these correspond to the axes of this graph down here. Right now it says none and none right here. And we want to actually give it a name so that we know which direction how fast she's going to go, and where we're going to put our animation. So the first one right here, I'm going to click on the none that's under horizontal axis, and this is going to be our movement direction. Okay. And then down here under our vertical axis, this is going to be our movement speed. Okay. So now you can see those none have been replaced with movement speed and movement direction. So the further up it goes up this chart, the faster she would go, or in the different directions will determine which direction she's moving, and we'll see that here in a second. The next thing we need to do is we need to make some changes on our axes so that makes a little bit more sense. So for our movement direction, we're going to go -180 on the top one, and then for the minimum axis value, and then for maximum axis value, we're going to go on the positive direction for 180. Okay. Right now it's set to 4 grids. If we were to change this because we had a lot of different animations, say we wanted to, also have an input that's going to detect whether she's running or whether she's walking. So those type of things can be also added. So we can increase the number of grids. We're not going to do that right now. We're going to leave it with the interpolation time and average interpolation. For movement speed, we are going to go ahead and change this to 0. We'll leave it at 0 rather. And max speed is going to be 600. Okay, and that is determined by our character and how fast she can move on the game scene. And that is, let me go ahead and jump back and show you where that's located real quick, so we can decide if you want your character to move at 600 or if you wanted to make your character move faster. Right here under the blueprints for our character, under the character movement selection right here, down here, max walk speed is 600. Okay. And then you can make all these other changes here for step height, angle that the person walks, and things like that. So those are some things to keep in mind. You can go in and make some different changes for jump and things like that. And that is where you would change them. So we're going to go ahead and right now it's set at 600. I'm just going to leave it at 600. We go back into our blend space. Now we've got everything set up, and you can see 0 to 600 is now inputted here. And this right here, this little green thing is when we click and move it, that determines which direction she's moving and where the animation is currently going to blend at. All right, so now let's go ahead and actually get some of our animation in here. We're going to first get our idle, okay? So the idle is going to be placed right down here in this bottom spot right here. And let's see here. We've got a bunch of different idles that are listed here, but I think the one we want is listed down further. Here we go. So it's called Hero Select Idle for this character. And if you want to try these different animations out, you can double click on them. They'll pop in and you can see the right here. Here's the Hero Select Idle. This is the current idle that I have. Sometimes you can hover over these and there we go. They'll show what the animation looks like. Okay. So this is the Hero Idle. That's what I'm going to go with for this particular one, and I just closed it. Nice job. Don't do that. All right, so open the blend space back up. All right, so it's the Hero Idle that I want to use, and we're going to go ahead and find that. Oh, also one thing to notice here, that blend space that we put in, this idle right here, blend space Belka, notice it's down here in the animations now. It's been picked up. All right, so I'm going to scroll down, find my Hero Select Idle, and just click and drag it and drop it right there in the center. And your character should pop into that position for right now. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the all of these, because all of these are non-movement down here, so the speed is 0. All of these are going to be idle. So let's go ahead and in each one of these little lines down here at the little intersection, we're going to drop this Hero Select Idle on all of those. All right, so now we've got the idle put in position for all of these, and the character is sitting at idle. Now the next thing we want to do is go ahead and start getting some movement, okay? So movement, speed, and direction. Here, if the control is in the center and we're pushing forward, our character should run forward. So we're going to go ahead and find a jog forward animation, and that would be this one right here, jog forward. And there we go. Now our character is jogging forward. If I move this direction, she's idle. If I move all the way up, she's at max speed. And in between, she slows down and then comes to a stop. And you can see how it blends all this in together automatically for us. Pretty nice. All right, so the next thing is we need to move left and right. So we're going to jog right, and we're going to jog. So if the controller is moved to the right, our character needs to move to the right, and this will be to the left. So remember, this is, let me get these right here. Move, jog right, and jog left. Okay, and then hopefully I'm not putting these backwards. All right, so let's go ahead and find a jog right. It should be down in here somewhere towards the bottom, alphabetical order. It's always helpful. And then we're going to do all the way back here. It's going to be jog backwards. But actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and grab jog left. There it is, jog left, and we're going to put jog left right there. And now we need 2 jog backwards. This is going to be jog backwards, and this is going to be jog backwards. So let's go ahead and find the jog backwards. Put that there, and place our other jog backwards over there. And now if we move this around, she should be running forward, jogging to her right, and then jogging backwards. And see how it blends them in together for us? Without having to actually create the individual animations, these animations are blended automatically for us. Okay, and this works. She's moving, she's definitely jogging left. Okay, that's good. All right, so that is putting together our first blend space. Let's go ahead and save that. Now let's jump back into our animation screen here. And let's go ahead and get this set up so that this will start to work for us. Okay. And let me see, find my notes. And clearly I don't have what I need. All right, so let's go ahead and start here in our anim graph, which is this animation graph right here. You see we have this output pose, and right there now there's nothing added to it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we need a state machine. So we're going to go ahead and right click in here, and this state machine tells the game what state our character is in. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and we can rename this. I'm just going to call it state machine. Get rid of the new off the front of it. Some people call it locomotion. You can do that as well. And if we plug this in from here to here, nothing happens. Okay, so we can compile it. We get this little warning symbol here which says that there's no entries inside the state machine. That is true. Let's go ahead and double click and go into the state machine, and you can see there's just this empty entry right here, and it goes into nothing. So what we want to do is go ahead and pull from here, and we're going to go ahead and pull out from here. Actually, I think we can just grab it from here. Grab in our blend space, go ahead and hit enter, and now we have our blend space, and we can plug that in just like that, and still nothing happens, right? Even if I compile it. There we go, we compile it. Now she's changed into that position, okay? But we're not ready to do anything with this yet. We're going to go ahead and kind of build this out as we go, and I'll talk through it as we continue getting things put together. So the first thing we're going to want to do is kind of use that movement direction and movement speed, but we need to set up an event graph to be able to get into this. So if I double click on this right here, it pops in, and you can see here's our blend space and here's our result, but there's no input for movement direction and movement speed. Now we could obviously put an amount in there and it would make her move, but we want to use our controllers for that input. So this means we're going to have to jump in and get a couple variables, but in order for those variables to work, we're going to have to set those up inside the event graph to go in and get the information that we want. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our event graph right here and get that started. So like I said, we're going to need to make a couple of functions, okay? And we're also going to need to get some references to our character and few other things. Now the first thing we see here is we have this event blueprint update animation. We need that, but we don't need to try to get pawn owner with it. We're going to move that up here, and what we're going to do is we're going to right click, and at the begin play, so event blueprint begin play, so when we're going to tell it we're ready to start playing, we're going to go ahead and pull this up. So let me go ahead and grab this down real quick and get my face off this screen so you can kind of see what we're doing here and move forward with that. All right, so okay, what did I just do? All right, pushing buttons and doing things I shouldn't be doing. All right, so let's go ahead and get this set up. The first thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and go right click here and go event and blueprint. Try to type that correctly. Event blueprint begin play. Right here at the very top we want this event, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to cast this to our character. So I'm going to pull out from here and I'm going to type in cast to, and we want BP underscore, and so whatever your character is, so here's your blueprint to the character that we created. So this is my blueprint, Lieutenant Bellica. I'm going to select that, okay? And now I'm going to pull out from here and try to get owner right there, okay? Now we've got this cast to set up, what we're going to do is should make our first variable. So right over this, I'm going to hover over as BP Lieutenant Bellica. I'm going to right click. I'm going to promote that to a variable, right? And so down here, it pops in with our variable, and there's our character. And this is exactly what we want, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of the as and make it Lieutenant Bellica. So now we have set it up so that we can pull this out as a variable and make our lives a little bit easier. So it's going to cast to our character right off the bat. It's going to get the owner pawn, which is our character, and it's going to cast it. We've created this variable. So, all right, now the next thing we need to do is we're going to go ahead and set up the blueprint for getting our speed and our rotation, okay? And also set up our camera. So, we've got Bellica down there. We need a couple more variables that we need to set up, and we also need to create those functions, and we're going to create those functions right in here. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to pull off from here, and we want to make sure that our character is valid. So we're going to type in is valid and pull that up, and then what we want to do is we're going to check to make sure that our character Bellica is indeed valid. So we're going to get Bellica, and we're going to plug that in, or your character, whoever your character is, and that's going to be our character. And then if it is valid, we're going to check for speed, and we're going to check for direction, but we need to create those functions first. So come down here, and we're going to hit the little plus button, and we're going to create a new function, and we're going to call this one movement speed. Okay, movement speed. All right, we're going to hit enter. Now we've got our variable set up, or our function into our function set up here. And what we need to do is go ahead and make a couple more variables. We're going to make, for this one, because this is speed, we're going to go ahead and hit the plus symbol down there. We're going to call this one movement speed. We're going to change it from being a Boolean to being a float. That means we got to compile it in order to be able to use this. So we're going to go ahead and compile it. Right up here at the top, hit compile. All right, so now that movement speed is created, and everything should be left alone the way it is. This is not going to be a pure, and it's not going to be a constant function, so we're fine there. All right, so let's go ahead and pull out our movement speed from here, and we're going to set this. We're going to have our input to here, have our set there, and then we need to go ahead and pull out Lieutenant Bellica, because Lieutenant Bellica get is the one that we want to find the speed of, right? This is our character. So whoever your character is, if it's not Bellica. All right, so now pull out from here, we need to find out her speed. So get velocity. All right, good. And now we're going to do a vector length for this one. So pull out from there, type in vector, and we want, let's see here, not that, let's right click. Vector length, there we go. So I'm going to have to not pull out from there and just right click in the empty area, pull up your vector length, plug that in, and this return value is going to set our movement speed. Okay. Now we're not quite done yet, because we're also interested in only running if our character is not in the air. We don't want our feet going like this when she's in the air. Okay, we don't want it to look like we want to actually do a jump so that she takes on the jump pose. So we're going to go ahead and limit that from here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull out from here, and we're going to get movement component. Get movement component down here for an input. Okay. And is falling is the one we want. So it's going to look to see if our character is falling. And that means that our character is in the air. So what we need to do is we need to create a variable for that, because we're going to set that variable if our character is in the air. So now we're going to hit the plus symbol down here for our variables, and this is going to be is in air. Oops, not asterisk, in air. Okay. Now with is in air, this is going to be a true or false scenario. Either our character is in the air or it's not in the air, right? So we don't need it to be a float. We need to set this as a Boolean. And now is in the air is ready. We're going to pull that out. We're going to set it. Okay, so we're going to run from here. Connect that there. And then if our character is falling, that means our character is in the air. And we're going to set the character as being in the air. So this is going to go ahead and get our first function done. So now we can go back to our event graph, and we're going to go ahead and pull that function out for movement speed, set it there, and if Lieutenant Bellica is valid, then this happens. If it's not valid, then nothing will happen. Okay. So next thing we need to determine is, well, which direction is our character facing or moving? So we need to create another function for that. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and down here under function, we're going to hit the plus button, and this is going to be direction. Nice and simple name. And inside of direction, this again is not a pure or const. We're just going to leave it the way it is. We're not changing anything here. So what we need to do is we need to get movement direction. We need a variable for that. We need to set another variable so that we can tell the animation blueprint which way our character is facing. So let's go ahead and create a new variable down here. And that's the purpose of this function, is to set the inputs for our variable. So let's go ahead and call this movement. And we're going to call this movement direction. Movement direction. And this is going to be a float. Again, we need to compile it in order to have an input for it. Now we're going to go ahead and pull out our movement direction. And just like before, we're not going to get the direction. We're actually going to set the direction with this function. So we're going to go ahead and pull that out. Plug in the output from there into the input for that. Now we're going to go ahead again. We're going to pull out our character. And we're going to get our character's information. And we need to find out, again, the velocity. So get velocity. We also need to get the actor rotation. So pull out from there and get actor rotation. Get actor rotation down here, at the very bottom. So get actor rotation. This is going to tell our function here which direction our actor is facing. Now what we need to do is we need to calculate this. So we need to bring these together. You can see these are two different outputs. This is a rotator. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just right click, and we're going to type in calculate direction. All right, there we go. Calculate direction. And we pull this in. You can see that the velocity goes into here, and the base rotation output from the get rotation goes into there. And now we're going to go ahead and set that up. And this is how we're going to get the direction that our character is going. From this function right here, we're going to go ahead and compile it, save it. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and go back to our event graph, and we can now plug in movement speed. From movement speed, we can go ahead and plug in our direction function. So we're going to pull that out. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got our direction. All right, so now in order to get the camera input to work correctly, we're going to have to also set up some things for the camera. And also, when our character dies, we don't want the camera to keep flying around and being able to be moved around. We want to stop everything so the player knows the game is over, correct? So we're going to go ahead and, in order to do this, we need a branch. And this branch is going to be a true or false scenario. So let's go ahead and pull out from there. We're going to type in branch. Okay. And right here's our branch. Okay. And our branch provides with a true or false, and as long as we put in a condition. So, and actually the condition for this one is just going to be a check again to make sure that our character, and we're going to get Velika again for me. So get your character. We're going to go ahead and do a check to make sure that our character is still valid. So we're going to go ahead and do is valid. And we want the question mark one. Okay. Actually, my bad. We want the function one. So let's go ahead and delete that. Try that again. So let's get is valid. And we're going to pull this one up right here. Clean it up a little bit. Connect this into the condition. Yes, valid. Our character is still valid. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and find our character's camera. We need to get the camera for this character because we're going to, again, be manipulating that camera with the world rotation, setting it, and then also being able to turn it off. So pulling out from Velika, all we need to do is type in camera. Okay? And remember, I named my camera Velika camera because that was my character's camera. So whatever you named your camera, look for that camera because there's probably several cameras maybe listed. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out from there. And this is going to give us our target. And this is our camera right here. And now it's the world rotation of the camera that I want to know. So I'm going to get world rotation. Okay. And that's going to set that up. So it's this right here. And what I want to do is this return value, I am going to split this. So I'm going to go ahead and right click here. I'm going to split that struct pin. Okay. So now it's going to give me my roll, my pitch, and my yaw. And those are the things that I'm interested individually, and I'm going to set those up. So I need a variable because I'm going to set those up here. I don't have one yet. So I need to create two more variables down here in order to be able to set them because I'm going to be using those also for my input later on. So let's go ahead and create this variable. And one of them is going to be camera pitch. And the other one is going to be camera yaw. We're not interested in roll, okay? So we're not going to make one for roll. Camera yaw. So pitch and yaw. All right, so now I've got those. So first, I'm just going to go ahead and pull them out in alphabetical order. I've got my pitch right there. We're going to set that. And then I'm also going to pull out my yaw. And we're going to set that. So let's go ahead and connect these in. So if it's true, our character is valid, we're going to set the camera pitch. And we're going to also set the camera yaw. And then we're going to pull out from this appropriate pin here, the pitch and the yaw. All right. Now the last thing we need to do is we're moving this camera around based on our character's movement, so the camera is going to follow appropriately. But the thing I want to have not happen is if our character is no longer alive, I want to be able to stop that. So we need to be able to determine that. And what we're going to do is we're going to, again, pull out here, and we're going to get Velika. Okay, now we could have pulled from here as well, but we're just going to keep this kind of clean and follow the logic a little bit more cleanly. Now, I don't have the variable. I don't have a variable down here that is going to work. I need another variable because I'm going to set dead. Okay, I'm going to set dead. We don't have that variable yet. So down here, I'm going to create another variable, and we're going to call this one just simple dead. Okay, and this variable, again, is a true or false. Dead or not. There is no numerical value for it. So we're going to go ahead and change this to a Boolean, true or false. Either the character is alive or the character is dead. Now I'm going to pull out from here. I'm going to pull out from here. And we're going to set it at this point. Okay? We're going to put that there. So if we're getting the situation that our character is dead, so from Velika, we're going to pull out from here. Now we haven't set that condition up elsewhere, so it's not going to know that that is the case, but we're going to go ahead and get our animation working, and as we move through our event graph and setting up damage to our character, that will be assigned. So when we pull out from there, all we need to do is hit dead, and the reference will come up for it. And actually, we may not be able to do that. Let's see here, because we haven't actually set that up yet. Okay. Let me just double check here. Yeah, we're not going to be able to hook this piece in yet until we actually get that put together for our character elsewhere inside of our blueprints for our character. So we might want to go ahead and just jump back in right now for that inside our character blueprints and set that up. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and compile this and save it. We can move forward without it here just to make sure everything is working. Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump back over here real quick. And, you know, I think as I'm talking through this and thinking through this, because there's a lot more programming to get the dead piece of it working at that, we're going to go ahead and disconnect this for right now. So hover over it, hit the Alt button, and we'll come back and get this all set up once we have our death condition set up for our character in the blueprint. So let's go ahead and because obviously she's not going to be dead while there's no enemies, there's no dead condition, so we can still get the animation blueprint to work, and then we can come back in and set the dead condition and stop the movement of the camera and the animation, and that'll be okay. So we're going to go ahead and compile this for right now, save it, and what we want to do is go back into our animation, let's see here, into our, yeah, we're already there. So we're going to go back into our blend space here. All right, so now inside of our blend space, we do have the movement directions, and we have these variables, and we've already been able to calculate those because we can move our character. So we're going to pull out from here, and this is movement speed. We're going to get our movement speed, and we're going to plug that in. And then we're also going to now pull in our direction. We're going to get movement direction. We're going to plug that in. I'm going to go ahead and save that right now, compile it. And now the output result should be working. And if we go back up to the state machine, we see that we have our blend space working. We're going to enter into that. We jump back up to our anim graph. We see that we have an input here. We should be able to get that to work. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now we're not using camera pitch here yet, and that is going to be for our idle offset, and we'll tackle that here in a second. But let's go ahead and go back to our character blueprint. And what we want to do is click right here on our character mesh, and over here in animation, you'll see that it has animation mode, animation class. So we're going to use the animation blueprint. Right now there's none listed. We're going to hit that down arrow, and we're going to find the one that we created. Now there is that other animation blueprint that is down here. We're not going to use that one. We're going to use the animation blueprint that we created. I'm going to select that. I'm going to compile it. Go back to my level. Hit play. And let's see. Now she's in the proper stance. Camera rotates around her. And when I run, she runs. And I can move left, move right, move forward, move backwards. So we have the beginnings of our animation done. But the jump doesn't look right. And again, when we jump in the air, she's still running as we jump in the air. Okay? So we got a few more things to fix. And that is going to go ahead and be the next step. So we've got this. We need to put in an idle offset. So we're going to go ahead and do that in the next video. This is the beginnings of our animation, and we're going to pause this from here. In the next video, we'll add in our idle aim point, our offset for our idle aim, and we'll also get our jump working. Okay, and that is it for now. We'll also come back and get this set up once we start handling our character in the death sequence, so we can shut that piece of the camera stuff off. All right, so again, I hope that everything worked out for you. If you have any questions, you can post them and ask, and I'll try to get back to you. So thank you very much. If you liked what you saw, please like my video. Also subscribe to my channel. Thank you again, and have a great day.